So if you thought that the delusional crybaby liberal media could not get any worse, I'm here to tell you, you are wrong. So ever since Trump won the election last Tuesday, liberals have been in complete shambles, pointing the finger, trying to associate blame. Was it Biden? Was it Kamala? Was it you and I? Just bigoted, sexist, racists. But the talking point that they're going with now is one of the most delusional, pat yourself on the back, just trying to stop the liberal tears from flowing down their face point of views I think I've ever heard, which is Donald Trump's win was actually not a landslide. It was pretty close.
In the presidential vote, Donald Trump currently has 50.2% of the vote to Kamala Harris's 48.1% of the vote. But that margin will probably narrow after all the California votes are finally counted. And it is possible that Kamala Harris will end up with only a 1% of the vote less than Donald Trump, a 1% gap. Right now, she's at 2% less than Donald Trump. If you hear anyone calling this election a landslide, please stop listening to that person about elections, at least. We have seen landslides in this country, and they don't look like this election.
You can tell that these people's spirits are low right now. They're trying to grasp to any moral victory they possibly can to make themselves feel better about getting absolutely swept in this election. I don't know about you, but when you win the popular vote, the electoral vote, win the Senate, and you win the House, that sounds like a landslide to me. Like, who let this guy give this opinion on live television? And you wonder why nobody trusts or likes the mainstream media anymore. Because this is just clearly not an objective analysis of the information. This is clearly just a Democratic Party mouthpiece trying desperately to raise the spirits of their ever-declining viewership. Here he is saying how the polls were actually super accurate, even though we know that they weren't, and the race was basically just a tie. Watch.
In the presidential election, the final national polls indicating that the race was a tie within a 3-point margin of error are proving correct. Donald Trump currently has a 2% lead over Kamala Harris at 50-48. Anyone who understands what polling data actually means knows that that result in the election is within the 3-point margin of error of all of the credible national polls in the final days of the campaign.
And that's why nobody trusts polls. Because even though it was a landslide victory for Trump, these polls said, oh, Trump's going to win this state, Kamala's going to win this state. It's all within a margin of error, when it was a clean sweep across the board. But the pollsters presented the information in that way to save their credibility, because they didn't want to be proven wrong by picking one side or the other and making an actual analysis of the data. Instead, they just mixed it all together, made it seem pretty even, pretty much like a tie, and then gave this huge margin of error so they could say, oops, well, you see, we said the margin of error was this big, so it was still accurate in the end. And that's why I told people weeks ago, Donald Trump was going to win, it wasn't going to be close, and to not take the polls into consideration, because the way that they're presenting the information isn't to give people an insight into what might happen. It's all about how they can save face and still get hired for more polls in the future.